listening to the Midweek Redemption Podcast, a resource from Redemption City Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan. For more information about our church, please visit our website at redemptiongr.org. Church, welcome to the Midweek Redemption Podcast, and you get a surprise voice today. I'm taking over for Josh because I'm sitting here with Camille Foor while Josh has the kids out, and so I get to interview her today. And part of hiring Josh in the midst of a pandemic is that a lot of you have not gotten to meet him or Camille in person, and so we wanted to give you just an introduction to who Camille is. So that you can get to hear her voice and get to know her a little bit more. So I'm so thankful to be here with you today, Camille, in your living room.
Yeah, welcome.
And so we're just going to follow the same format that Josh has been using, the 3-2-1, which is 3 people, 2 places, 1 experience. So if you've been tuning into the podcast for a while, you've heard a number of our people just share their story in that format. And so that's what we're going to be using today with Camille. So Camille, thank you for letting me come and interview you and introduce you to our church who has gotten to meet you, and also to the people that have been at home and haven't had the opportunity.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. Nice to have an empty house with no kids.
Right, yes. Yeah.
Albeit still messy.
Right, well, I'm totally used to the mess, and the quiet is nice. So
yeah,
it's really great. So doing the 3-2-1, and to do that.
Yeah, I was just telling you I might start with the 1, and now I'm regretting that or rethinking it. So yeah, I'll start with 1, 2, 3 and see how that goes.
Sure.
But,
or maybe first, sorry to interrupt, why don't you introduce us to just your family, what the makeup is, like for people that have not gotten to see your kids even, like how long you've lived in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, let's see. Well, I'm married to Josh, and we have...
How long have you been married?
Oh, numbers.
What year?
Let's see.
I always lose track.
I think it's like 6 or 7 years now. No, it's 7, I'm pretty sure. We moved to Grand Rapids last February with our 2 babies, Johnny and Ruby, and now we are expecting baby number 3, Isla. We've already named her, in a few weeks, so we're looking forward to that. It's been a crazy 2020 for us, moving to a new town and growing our family and moving into a fixer-upper. You might hear some construction sounds with
some guys working in the
Mr.
basement.
Mark down in the basement. So, yeah, it's been a very... 2020 has lived up to all of its hype.
All the hype, right? A year
for us.
None of us will forget, right?
Yeah.
And California is home.
I grew up in California. I've spent my first, 22 years there or so. And so I am West Coast and a little bit crunchy because of that. But and then Josh and I met when we were both at seminary in Louisville at Southern Baptist Seminary. And then we moved to Big Rapids to Michigan. It's like about 5 years ago now, to do a church revitalization. So we've been in Michigan for a few years, but done a lot of moving around. But we like Michigan. When we were picking a place to live, we were kind of like in a place where we could spin the globe and just pick.
Point a finger.
And really nice to just settle on Grand Rapids. We really like Grand Rapids. And are excited to live here, and excited to live here without a
when
pandemic.
Things open back up. Right? I know. Some of my favorite parts of Grand Rapids are not open, and so it's just,
We were so excited about being so close to the Y.
To the Y, right.
And the Kids Museum and all the stuff.
Right, it'll be like a huge celebration.
Someday.
When all of it opens back up, right. Have a pool party at the YMCA pool.
Yes. Yes. Every time we drive by it, Johnny's like, I want to go swim at the Y. I'm like,
don't we all?
Someday.
Right.
Yes, don't we all?
Right.
So
thank you for just that intro.
Yeah. I was thinking about doing one experience, like Christy was saying, being shaped by different teachers. Like she mentioned Steve Krogh, like he was influential for her. He was also influential for me in kind of similar ways. But I was thinking experience-wise, there have been different sermons or different teachings that I've sat under in my life that have been very crucial in like forming me and shaping me. And so just to narrow it down specifically to one that's been very paradigm shifting for me and I think brought a lot of like fruit in my life, I was at a counseling conference because I went to seminary for counseling, and part of the program was going to different counseling conferences in the region. It was a woman teaching on how to counsel women in the church, and the whole point of her message basically was how to counsel women into the character that they want to be rather than the roles that they found themselves in. So, or the nature of being a woman, regardless of what role they played in life, which was, it sounds super simple. It was like really paradigm shifting for me because my church background had been very much like women are, our goal in life is to be a wife and a mom and to live into those roles and of course grow in hospitality and nurturing and caregiving kind of within those roles, in the context of those roles. And as a late 20-something-year-old woman in the church, I felt super lost, knowing what my place was in the body of Christ and, you know, even like what I should be doing with my life as a single 20-something. Right. Because I did want to get married and have kids, but I was like, I can't make that happen.
Sure.
Am I just like...
And am I less of a woman because I'm not doing those things?
Very much so. Yeah. Like, I remember, like, I went to John MacArthur's church when I was in college, and, like, they just had no answer for single women. Like, what are single women supposed to do? Like, maybe be a missionary? Like, you know. Right, that's
your option.
But, like, I remember his wife... Like, my friend's mom asked his wife, like, what do I do as a single woman? And she's like, I don't know.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. So, and you can see so many dangers in that, like, narrow of thinking, because then you're defined by those roles instead of, like, being a child of God. And,
and, you know, like, you hear people, like, when you come to a job change or whatever, like, that being a really, like... identity shaking thing because we find so much of our identity in our roles, which is natural. But I thought it was so encouraging because, like, she presented just different biblical calls on womanhood. So, like, you know, in the role of being a mom, you're a life giver and a nurturer and a placemaker, sort of like these character qualities. And so she's just like, for women who are not in the role of mom, you can still pursue those godly character qualities, like, and distinctly feminine character qualities. So hospitality and life-giving nature of women, which I think God gives us that specifically. So it was super liberating and encouraging to me to, like, leave that as a single woman and kind of, like, make future life choices on, like, okay, I'm not in these roles, but I can pursue these character qualities. So, you know, making decisions going forward was a little bit easier and more clarified for me.
Sure.
You know,
because like, you're not looking at all these things that you can't be or that you're not. But things that you could lean into.
Yeah, I don't have to sit around and twiddle my thumbs and wait for the role to come. Right. Like, I can pursue, like, so it was like, teaching was a career role for me, but it's also like a character quality or gifting that God had given, and and you can take that and use it in different roles or different capacities in different seasons.
Yeah.
So that was like super encouraging. Like it helped me as a single girl, like make decisions. Like I am not married, but I want to be hospitable. So how do I like choose a living arrangement where I can still pursue being hospitable as a single woman? I love kids. I love nurturing. How can I pursue nurturing, like maybe my friends' kids? And,
sure.
You know, like if these are things I love and character qualities I want to like grow in, I don't have to wait around for the role to happen.
Yeah.
And that carried over. And like I picked this teaching because I feel like it just played out in a lot of different instances. Like when we were waiting to have kids of our own, it took us a long time to get pregnant with Johnny. But it was like, I can pursue nurturing, you know, like, and support my friends who are drowning in kids right now.
Yeah.
And practice on them or
right.
whatever.
Right. Yeah, I love that because I think you can put so much, there's a temptation to put so much stock in like being a wife and a mom. For anybody who's in that knows that it never lives up to its expectations because it's never meant to fulfill. And so I think the way that you came at it was so beautiful, and the way that the woman brought it out in the teaching.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're the character and becoming more like Christ, not necessarily the role itself.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I've heard more teaching on it since then, but honestly, it was really, it felt groundbreaking to
Sure.
me. Like coming from a conservative
Such a
church
limited
background.
Yeah. Not limited, but just narrow.
Very narrow.
Yeah.
Very narrow.
Yeah. I can see where that would have been like,
Yeah, and
so
as
exciting.
I explain a little bit more of my background, maybe like, there was no vision presented me like for the good life other than being a wife and a mom, maybe coming from a small town or
right.
The family background that I had or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I think that can be particularly true for anyone who's grown up in West Michigan too. That's often the perception, like you have to be married by the time you graduate college, or what are you going to do with your life?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I was not a Christian, so for a long time. So I didn't have that, but I've heard it a lot from like just other women that did grow up around here.
Yeah.
Especially in the suburbs. It was more, this is the track that you're on. So, super.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a little tricky working backwards, but
so you can do 3 people, you can do 2 places.
Yeah. I'll do the 2 places. I want to do a person before I do a place, but
you can mix it up. You know, we have the mic. Josh is not here. We can do whatever we want with
this is what happens when women take over.
I know. Instead of following a linear path, you're like, well, let's just
go around
the winding way.
We'll get there eventually.
We'll get there, right? So you can do however you want.
Well, okay, so one person that was super influential for me was Sophia Vanderdusen. She was a friend, an older sister figure. I think, they moved to our small town. They took over my OPA, my grandfather's dairy, probably when I was like a freshman in high school. And I started babysitting for her through high school, through college in the summers, and then when I moved back from college, ended up living in their guest house. And I started when she had 1 baby, and when I left, she had 6.
Oh my word!
So
you saw a lot of growth.
We were just together for a lot of time.
Right.
And like she also I ended up like doing the books for their farm part-time. Like we kind of like tag teamed their office work and childcare. So we spent a lot of time together over the years, and I was a really shy, really awkward teenager, and even into college. Like, so there wasn't like a whole lot of like in-depth, heart-to-heart conversations. But we just like, if you talk about someone that just by time and proximity was in my life, she was there, and she was also there for some very like pivotal decision-making moments. And she definitely discipled me in life just by doing life together. Like, I definitely caught like the very like intense Dutch cleaning and like organization stuff from her, which was generally the culture of our town. But yeah, there are plenty of times when my mom was like, "You've been spending a lot of time with Sophia because you're scrubbing our front door," and
like, you're taking this a little too far.
But she definitely shaped me in a lot of ways that I thought were really good with like self-discipline and hard work. There were some times where she just like stepped in and spoke a word to me that was just like, there were moments where I just needed to hear someone tell me it was okay to do something, and then I could do it. So when I graduated college, I think I got engaged to a guy the summer after I graduated from college, and it was a very intense legalistic culture that we were in. So I don't know how much was him or the college culture we were in, but I would say the relationship was like very controlling, bordering abusive with how he tried to interact with me on a lot of stuff.
Manipulative and just...
manipulative. Like, he would, like, pull back and say, "I'm waiting to see some character change in you, but I won't tell you what it is." And that, all this, like, really weird Christian college.
Right, or I'm going to pray about this, or I'm going to, just...
It was an intense relationship. It was my first relationship. A lot of it was just like, I was just excited to have someone who said they loved me.
Sure.
I don't know, maybe 8 weeks out from the wedding, and Sophia took me out to lunch and sat me down, and she's like, "Engaged girls," we're going to have some background sound. She's like, "Engaged girls should be happy, and you're not happy, and it's okay to not marry this guy.
Wow.
Like, you can and probably will find someone else."
So insightful. Like, she knew you and knew just the...
And I didn't talk a lot about it or anything, but just from being together, she had noticed, like, this isn't how engaged girls should be. Right. And I think that was huge for me, because I was, like, I think by then just very duty driven and fear of man driven. I can't call off a wedding. Like, do you know what
people think? And
to just hear her say that was a possibility was like so helpful, because I think by the next week I had called off the engagement and felt just a huge burden lifted. So I really appreciate her, because I don't know, my life would be very different.
It would look different.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then similarly, I think I stayed in town and lived and worked with them the 2 years after that. And that was a rough 2 years, like being kind of in that culture that valued marriage and family, to be single.
Sure.
I was...
And you had just stepped away from that, like made it...
Yeah, and I was the oldest single person I knew in town, and I was 22.
Oh my God.
So, it was very isolating. There was good stuff God did in those years, but the same thing happened like a couple years in. I was working in their office, and she just like popped her head in, and she was like, "Camille, if I was young and single, you and I would just take a year off and go to Europe and work odd jobs and just have fun. Like, be young and have fun." And she just like popped her head in, said that, and left.
Right?
And then I'm pretty sure like in a couple weeks I was like interviewing families for nannying jobs all across Europe. Yeah. Wow. And so she just like really kind of like would come in and speak a word. Yeah. And it was like getting that permission from someone else. Sure. To just be like, this, you could do this. Yeah. Giving a vision for something, I guess. Sure. which was just not a common thing.
Right, because you were in this duty, like, this is just what life looks like. No outside the box thinking.
Very small town, very, so I feel very thankful for Sophia's role in my life. Just like the privilege of being in their home and family with like watching their kids grow up, and so I feel very thankful for her. Yeah. Which leads me to my first place. All
right, you guys tracking with us to see where we're going? Okay, so one person to a place. All right, got it.
Which leads me to a place that shaped me was I spent a year as an au pair or a live-in nanny for a family in The Hague in the Netherlands. Wow. And
you had gotten some Dutch training, it sounds like, in terms of like how to clean and how to do all that.
I joked about it going back to my roots, and because that is my dad's side of the family is all Dutch. Gotcha, but and in fact, my Dutch friends in the Netherlands would say I was more Dutch than them because American Dutch people like hold tight.
They hold tight to it, right?
To things way more than even they do. People my age do there. So, like when they found out I knew how to make stroopwafels, they were like, "No one here knows how to make stroopwafels. We just buy them at the store." But that year was really good. It was really healing for me, like taking me out of my small town. I had done like extended traveling in other countries before, so it wasn't like a completely new experience, but super formative and shaping for me was my church experience in the Netherlands, because there were just very, very limited options for where I could go for English-speaking Christian fellowship, and I ended up at an international church plant in The Hague and called Crossroads. Funny. It was just a very, very beautiful experience of Christian fellowship across like just cultural differences. The church itself, I have probably never heard sillier sermons in my life than I did there. It was definitely not the teaching.
That you had kind of grown up with.
There were some really off-the-wall sermons and teachings, and people came from all sorts of kind of wacky. But my community group just like really truly represented the world. We had obviously Dutch people, South African people, a couple from the Philippines who were working at the Peace Palace. The Hague was a very international city in general, but it just felt like our community group really represented the world, and there were so many moments where we'd be all in the room together and be like, we are so different. We have like our basic understandings of the world are so different, but there is this unity in Jesus that the only unity here is Jesus. That was just like a really beautiful experience, a really like broadening understanding of what the church is, sweet fellowship with believers from around the world. The other thing was like it being like a much more secular country. Was there were plenty of people who came to our church or visited our church who were like completely post-Christian culturally. So like all of my like connections back in the States, like everyone was kind of pseudo-Christian or had a family that like understood some sort of level of Christianity even if they weren't practicing. But we would have people in our community group who like I'm pretty sure were there mostly for social reasons but had a little bit of curiosity about Christianity, but it was like learning how to speak with other people about what I believed from a place where they probably had never
from, like, ground level.
They had never heard anything, So that was really life-giving and really exciting as a Christian to like have friends who were like asking questions, but like had no Christianese,
right. And the nice part about that is they're not, I mean, they're coming without all the baggage that sometimes comes along with growing up Christian or whatever. So.
And Dutch personalities, like, they're very frank. They have, like, what's the word? They want everyone at the table to contribute to the conversation. So, like, and people can say whatever they want to, and there's, like, space for people.
For that.
Yeah, and so it was, like, very fun to have those, like, frank questions being asked and just open conversations about a lot of aspects of Christianity.
Yeah. That was for 1 year.
That was 1 year. And then I think my second place, probably my family's farm, was very formative for me. We moved to Northern California from San Diego in 91, and we lived on that farm. I lived there until I moved out of the house.
Was it close by the dairy farm that your grandma and grandpa had, or
it was all in the same town? All my extended family were all dairy farmers, and all my aunts and uncles and grandparents had farms in this small town in Northern California. We all started in San Diego, and everyone eventually moved and started new farms in Northern California.
Okay.
And we were all within, like, 4 miles of each other.
Wow.
So it was a very small town.
Small town, small circle.
And it was like the Verboom family invasion of a very small town. Yeah. It's like we lived there for, like, 20 years, and people still, like, saw us as the new folks.
The new families. Right?
Yeah. The big-time dairy.
Right.
Or whatever. But,
do your parents still live there?
My parents still live there. Okay. My sisters still live within a block of my parents. I am the only person, really, who has left.
Has moved away.
Almost all my cousins and aunts and uncles on both sides have, like, settled in that area.
And the farms are still going?
They are, my parents' farm is, they still rent space for cows, but they've moved to pistachio orchards.
Okay.
So my brother-in-law started his pistachio orchard, maybe. It was the same year we got married, so I think 7 years.
7, 8, somewhere there, right? 6, 7, 8. Right.
General. I'm, like, so bad.
No,
I am so bad with dates and numbers.
I sometimes throw out a year, and then I'm like, no, I was off by 3 years.
Yeah.
So, I get it.
I'm like...
we do it in ranges.
Somewhere. Oh, man.
Right.
Yeah. But, yeah, that farm was very... I mean, I was homeschooled for a lot of time, so my cousins were... our playmates growing up, like, lived, we walked to each other's houses and whatnot. So, a very formative place, there were, like, times where we just spent our lives outside, which is a very good thing, and realize more and more, like, what a gift that was, like, to grow up in such a beautiful climate with a lot of space outside, and had pretty good outdoor childhoods. And then even as I grew up, there was a lot of isolation, and there's, like, very good reasons why I eventually left my small town. But there's a lot of, like, just slowness and quietness about being out there. You can cross the line from solitude to isolation.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think there was
fine line. Yeah.
I think there was a lot of good in the moments of solitude, where, like, God really met me. So, like,
you didn't have all the noise and all the busyness. So yeah.
I just remember a lot of times in high school, in college, when I'd be back home, and especially those 2 years after calling off the engagement, they were just very quiet years where I would go for just long prayer walks out in the back of my parents' property, and they lived, like, in, like, the foothill, like, where the foothills are starting, and so you look out to the west, and just, like, this beautiful mountain range. Always had I would still say the best sunsets anywhere in the world. We're surrounded by almond orchards that blossomed in the spring, just like
So
gorgeous.
pretty, yeah.
So just a lot of like appreciation of the beauty of God's creation, but also just like a stillness and being with God without like a lot of distraction. You know, there was a lot of loneliness, but there were a lot of moments where it was like feeling the nearness of God in those moments. And I don't know, there was a lot of like time and place in history, like pre-smartphones, like
right.
I remember getting internet, like, didn't have
the dial-up and
just being so far out there and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just seeing that as a gift, and I think that really shaped me in that place and in that time.
Yeah, sounds just like a very peaceful setting and calming and
unrushed, unhurried. It's not a place like I could see myself living now,
Sure.
but I feel very thankful for
the time
for the good things that came out of that time and season.
Sure.
So,
how to carry some of that over into city living and how to still keep some of that serenity while living in a very different place.
Yes. I love living in the city and being around people. I think there's like just so much good from living in community with others that you miss out on when you're so far
removed.
But there's different seasons in life, and
so
I appreciate that season. I appreciate this season of pursuing like relationships with people more by being in a more urban context.
Proximity.
And then I'll finish up with two more people.
All right.
I would say, like coming off of growing up on the farm, I would have to say, my mom was a huge influence, for better or for worse, in my life.
Right? The role of a mom has both.
You can't get away from your mom's influence, and that's like such a humbling thing, being a mom.
Right, you're like, oh no.
Like, what am I going to do to my kids?
Right. Right, it's weighty, because you know that you will have both.
Yeah. So I know, like, I think there are a lot of like very good things that my mom gave to me as her daughter. I know she grew up in a very chaotic home with parents who like took them to church, but I think it was very nominal. She doesn't talk a lot about her childhood, but from what I have picked up, it was very chaotic and very messy, sinful behavior going on with both of her parents. And so she, like, I think her goal in life was to provide her kids with a much more stable life than what she had. And she definitely did. Just thinking about the stability of, like, growing up on a farm and staying in one place for most of my childhood. That's such a gift. And she would stay at home and did a lot to make our home, like, I think, like, one of her goals was, like, she wanted our home to be the place where our friends wanted to come. So, like, I really didn't spend a whole lot of time with, at my friends' houses, because everybody wanted to come to our house. So there was a lot of, like, really good homemaking. She definitely, like just embraced the whole Martha Stewart lifestyle, like, of the 80s, 90s.
Right.
Like, and it was definitely, there was a lot of performance mixed up in that, that type of hospitality. But it, she did want people to feel welcome and comfortable in our home. So that was really good, and I love hospitality too. So and in the same way, I inherited a little bit of the pressure of the performance with hospitality, and so that's like an area to like okay,
recognize,
take the next step and grow into more messy hospitality.
Right.
You know,
I think there's a lot coming to the surface on that too, of just people who have grown up under that. Like, how can we have the good parts of hospitality without the feeling like we have to have it all right?
And like, she super formed me with like, she likes nice things. Like, and I was like, how do I always pick the most expensive? Like, when given options, I always pick the most expensive thing.
Right.
And I'm like, that's my mom.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. I married a pastor.
I know, right? How can I afford this lifestyle that I want?
She has very good taste. She's a very, very classy, very and like share that in like in ways that it was always like, let's do something special. And so doing special things was a value for her, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
This year has been really hard. With all parents stuff, like we can appreciate the good and have to mourn some of the bad.
Sure.
And so like this 2020 has been like the year where a lot of the bad has come up, and a lot of really, really difficult things with both my parents have come up. Long-term things that have been going on, but they came to the surface this year as far as like sin and the ability to either acknowledge the presence of sin or repent of it, and what that does to relationships and
the ripple effect on the family.
So it's been a very hard year relationally with my parents, but I think God uses that in our stories. We have to face all of our brokenness and all of the brokenness in our story. And part of that for me this year has been like seeing how much shame has been a huge part of my growing up experience, and what shaped and formed me. And a lot of that was, I think, shame that my mom lived in herself and then passed on to us. And some of the tricky ways that even like good Christian behavior is encouraged through shaming or fear of man, or whatever you would put it. But like I for sure grew up with a very intense belief that I was bad. I'm a very bad person, and I need Jesus, and I need to try to be good. And I need to do what my mom says to try to be good. And a lot of that was like from believing I was just like intrinsically bad. A lot of like, you don't put yourself out there, people don't want to see you, that so it was like false humility, but really it was just shame. So it was like, good Christian girls like work behind the scenes and don't talk too much and don't put themselves out there. They're not, a lot of like being silly or goofy was really shut down, and just like being very appropriate.
Kind of like the performance thing that she fell into. She also was teaching you to do the same thing. Yeah. Like perform this way. This is what it looks like. And
So just like coming, like just a lot of memories, like going through a lot of memories this last year and realizing like, oh my gosh, that was a lot of shame that we lived under. And it's honestly, it's still how most of my family functions still as they interact with each other and interact with people in our town. So, for better or worse, that has shaped me. And that would lead me into my final person, which is Josh. You just you can't help but be shaped by your spouse.
Right, yes, they are formative, they're in it with you.
And like marrying Josh, I was very much marrying someone who was so opposite of my family culture. It's like laughable. We talk about like our experiences meeting each other's family for the first time, and it's just like
could not have picked more polar.
Well, his family was like asking me all these questions about myself, and like they're very outgoing. They state themselves like, and I was like, oh, they're so invasive and so rude. They're like saying what they want all the time. And
right, and you have grown up under this is what a Christian girl does. She's reserved, she's quiet. Right?
Yeah, and you never say what you want or need, or you never, like, you just always defer to somebody else, and if you want something, you go about it, like, 5 different back roads.
Right,
and,
you can't just be direct. Right.
And then, like, he comes out to Orland, and no one asks him a single question about himself, but they, like...
Because they see that probably as rude. Like, if you ask too many personal questions.
Yeah, it's just culturally so different, and not, by no means, a healthy example, but...
Sure.
But, like, for him to get to know people, we would go visit different people around town, like different family members, and sit and talk about other people, and then go to the next house, and they would talk about the last house
that you were at.
So they were like, this is how you get to know our town. Like, this is how we include you. And Josh was like, this is really weird. Which it is really weird. So he's definitely a very different person, and which made for a very interesting first couple years of marriage. They were very... I think a lot of both of our brokenness came up just because of the total clash that it was.
Yeah.
A lot of my performance and expectations kind of that I put on myself coming out of my family culture for what was expected as a wife was not good that I brought, and it came to the surface in the first year or so of marriage, and
probably some of the similar lies that you believed when you were little, like I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, like I'm failing, and all these things.
Yeah, like I would like have these high expectations on myself and be like, I can't do any of this, and then act out towards Josh, put pressure on him. It would just get messy.
Sure.
I just lost my train of thought, but I'm not good enough. Like, I had this intense fear that he would leave me. So, like, just not having that trust built, like, I was like, I'm going to do something wrong, and he's going to leave me. And that was, like, a reoccurring nightmare for, like, a long time in early marriage. Like, in more recent years, and as, like, processing my family history and background, there's just been a lot of hope with us making our family together. Just taking, like, we see a lot of generational tide breaking on both sides of our family. So, like, we definitely see the brokenness in our family's generational past, but it's also just been encouraging. Like, our parents put in good work. And we're benefiting from that good work, and, we're going to do the same.
Yeah.
So we see positive growth.
Sure.
And even, like, just being willing to show up to some of this hard soul care work. Like, I might not experience many years of the blessing of dealing through this mess.
Right.
But Lord willing, it'll provide a foundation for our kids to, like, build on that's better than what we had.
Right. Yeah.
So, just seeing like a long view of that, and so I feel super thankful just being in that process with him together, feeling like we are building on what we were given, and like kind of to that point, like there with some of like the family mess that I've been going through, like the last couple years was went for a prayer walk while we were in Big Rapids, and just got this phrase, like, you are being saved, and this vision of being, like, pulled into a life raft, and, like, from a sinking ship, and, like, God is saving me, and my life is a process of being saved, and, like, God redeeming me from some areas of brokenness, like my family culture, and like to be encouraged, like I'm in the process of being saved, like being pulled out of icy water into a life raft might not feel awesome. Like you're still going to be cold and miserable, right? And wondering what in the world's going on.
Yeah.
But it's happening, and you're in the process of it. And us starting our family together and working through things together is a huge part of that process of being saved and seeing things be made new. So I feel extremely thankful for just his partnership in that and his leadership in our home to like pursue God and create space where God can work in that process. And provide like distractionless space even in the midst of just like the crazy years of early marriage and young kids. And so a lot of that is like due to Josh's leadership and vision for our life and making something new. So I think, I feel thankful for him. We definitely, God uses our spouses for our sanctification and
right, and lots of fireworks, right?
Fireworks, but they're when God's in it, those fireworks are good.
Right, yeah, you can see the beauty in it. You're like, okay, it's making a really loud bang. But it's good.
So, I think those are my people. Those are my places.
Yeah, well, I appreciate just the time you've taken to talk to us and just tell us a little bit more about yourself. I guess it's been odd, I'm sure, for you guys. Like, what's been the strangest part of joining a church in the midst of COVID? And
it's been the weirdest.
Right, because adjusting to a new church with new people is hard, even in the best situations.
Yeah. Well, like there's I think there's still a lot of people that we've heard about.
Right. Who are these people?
Like, they're like really committed members. I'm like, it'll be nice to meet them someday.
Right.
So I do look forward to meeting people, just being able to get more plugged into community and fellowship with others. And we've had some, like this summer, we got to meet a lot of people and start some connections. So I feel really thankful for that. And like it was really strange. I think I was driving to church the week before Christmas, but like I had the thought like, there could be a point in this coming year where like people just come to church.
Yeah, where it starts to feel a little more normal.
I was like, okay, like it's not always going to be like this. And it's so strange. We came out of like a very strange, kind of lonely season in Big Rapids with a dying church. And like it just 2020 was nothing like what we were expecting it to be. Like we thought we'll just like join a church
and have all these relationships.
Have whatever our idea of normal was.
Right.
It was like, this is not normal. We'll just wait for whenever that does come.
Right. Yeah. It was an interesting year for that. Like these were my expectations for the year. None of them happened. It went so different.
Yeah. So just like, adjusting expectations and embracing maybe just a little bit more of the solitude than we were wanting to. I think we thought we were coming out of that, and
but that part is over.
Let's just lean into that a little bit more
for a little bit longer.
So, God does good training for us in those quiet times. We love the people that we've met and spent time with so far, and do look forward to just becoming more and more like family.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're very thankful to have you guys here, and I've told a lot of our women that like we know that when the guys are involved, it's because the girls are taking a lot of the brunt work at home and with the kids, and so thank you for all the ways that you have released Josh and allowed him to step into the areas he's been at. And
no, it's been really good for our family, and I'm excited about the ways that Josh has been able to be involved so far.
Sure, yeah. One of my favorite podcasters is it's called Foster Your Family. It's a foster care blog. But anyway, she always ends on like, what are you reading, what are you eating, and what are you loving? So I'll ask you those 3 questions as we close.
Reading, eating, and loving.
Yeah.
Or
maybe not if you're not a reader or a podcaster or
No, anything. I do love to read, and I've just read a lot. I'm trying to think of... I just finished a book called This Tender Land. Mm-hmm. It's by a Minnesota author. Mm-hmm. He also wrote Ordinary Grace. I wish I could remember his name, but I highly recommend. Mm-hmm. It's not like I was an English teacher, so I can be a little snobby with my book selection, but right. It's not great literary work, but is good storytelling and cozy and very Midwestern.
Good, like bedtime reading.
Yeah. Like this one is about like 4 orphans who try to run away from their orphanage and get to St. Louis by the Mississippi River. So it's just a fun story. Mm-hmm.
Eating has gotten interesting for
you. I'm trying to eat low carb for all this end of pregnancy stuff. Sure. But when I do indulge, it's been Trader Joe's dark chocolate peanut butter cups.
Those are delicious. Yeah. Yes.
That's my treat. Mm-hmm. And then loving, I actually have been all this time at home, just loving the stage that my kids are in. Mm-hmm. It's crazy and chaotic, and they do all the toddler things, but I really just like being able to be present to this season has been really fun. So they're fun kids. I get a kick out of them.
I can attest they are fun. Hi Ruby, hi Johnny, and they're just walking in now, so we can wrap up here. But thank you so much, Camille. Thank you, Josh, for handing us the mic and letting us go. And we will talk with you guys soon.